Hello and welcome to Amethyst Star Crafting. My name is Jane Allmark and I'm a UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. And today we are sort of carrying on from the last video that I did, which had all of the pretty little hearts that I did with a die. And during that video I was turning around and saying that if you don't have the dies, or again, I know a lot of you do, but I have quite a few of my viewers who are just starting out and they don't have die cutting machines and they don't necessarily have punches and things like that. So I was turning around and telling you how you can actually make a mask yourself, particularly a heart, which is really easy. So this is just a piece of copy paper. I've done it coloured because it makes it slightly easier to see, and I've cut it exactly the same size as the piece that we're going to be using, because that's helpful when we come to doing the blending with the blending brushes. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half as sort of exactly as you can. Okay, and then with a pencil you are going to draw half a heart. Now, because it's the size you want, you can draw it the size that you actually want on there, and basically you take it from wherever you want your starting point to be, and then you come up and go down and come sort of round like that to a point. So it's a really easy shape to draw. You don't have to be sort of, you know, an expert to be able to draw this sort of half heart. And the reason that you do it like this is that when you just cut it out with your scissors, and again, it doesn't have to be precise as you're cutting it through, but you know that both sides are going to be equal. And that's what makes a heart easy to do, and also you create your own mask at the same time. Now, you can do big ones, you can do small ones, you can do whatever size you want. You then have a piece which is, as I say, is exactly the right size. So if you wanted to do, and we might do something like this on another one, I haven't decided yet, but if you wanted to do the heart as the centerpiece and sponge around the outside, or, you know, use that as your center, you can do. So you don't need to waste that piece. And you then have your mask for the center, and all you need to do is to just literally just sort of bend it so that it's flat, and then that will go onto the inside exactly the same size, and you've got your own simple mask. So now we're going to make a card with this, and I'm using Dragonfly Garden this time. And I'm going to be using the word, because I'm going to have it as a Valentine style of card. I'm using the touch of ink, but I'm just using that little love again, because I think a small sentiment works very well with this sort of thing. However, you don't need to have it too... you don't need to have love if you don't want to. You can have, find a little stamp. It might say hello, it might say thank you, it might say hi, it might say whatever you want. I'm using love because, as I say, we're approaching Valentine's, and as I was saying before, I don't do very much with on Valentine's Day, but I do send quite a lot of cards. So for me, it's nice to actually have cards that you can send for, as one of my subscribers was saying to me in the comments, and as I say, I read and appreciate all of your comments, was saying would be perfect for an anniversary. You know, just the word love on something, you don't need very much more. So I'm literally just doing this in Pool Party. So I'm taking just around the edges, just a little bit darker, because I quite like that coming through. And you can take, because this is quite a large one, I'm not going to just do one side. I'm just doing the edges round darker, so it just leaves it just a little bit easier, and that's going to be fine. I'm only doing it in one colour. You can tone it in with different colours if you wanted to, so you could take something that was a little bit darker. Let me have a look so we can just make it a little bit more. We used the pool party, not the pool party, the Pacific Point the other day. Now Pacific Point is lovely and really quite a bright blue, so let's do some with that. So let's just have that in there. And with this, because it is quite dark, I'm literally just want to take it just round the edges without it being too much at all. So I'm taking it off from there, and I'm just literally just doing the outside with it, just to add a little bit more definition without making it too dark, because we're going to be stamping over the top of it again, so I don't want it too dark. So I'm literally just very gently sort of stroking it around the sides, but I think that that will just give a little bit more colour without it being over the top. So I'm just bringing that down in the centre and bring it down that way. Let's take that off and see. I think that will work perfectly. Whoops. There we go. Right. So you now have that sort of dark going into the light. But as I say, you don't need dies. You don't need punches. You can make these very simply yourself. Okay, so let's have a look at the... Take my little masks and things out of the way, so you don't want them in my way. So we're going to take the Dragonfly now, and my personal favourite out of the two of them is this one, because the body is dark. This one, the body is clear, so you can colour it in colours, but I really like having the dark body. I think it works very well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put this in, and I'm using Memento because, as I've said before, Memento is water-based. And if you're then colouring it in with blends, it's a really good ink to use. And it's one of the ones that we stock. So as most of you know, I always have in the description box below the details to go across to my shop, where you can buy any of the products you see. So I'm just going to put this almost sort of slap bang in the center like that. I think it's not a precise science, but yes, that's fine. So that's going through. It's taken it into the center a little bit. I maybe should have skewed it a bit, but I think that's going to work. And then I'm going to take the Little Love, which I've already taken out, and we're going to have that as the sentiment, but rather than doing it just once, we're going to take it down and we're going to take it as if it's the little piece of the dragonfly flying. So I'm trying to do it down like that. Maybe just off at the bottom. So you've got that little sort of flying piece coming down, which I think just sort of makes it look a little bit prettier. Should have really had a bit more of a swirl on it, but you get the idea. And then we are going to just take some blends, and I've chosen the blue, which is the dark balmy blue, and I've chosen the dark of the Bermuda Bay. I have used the light of the Bermuda Bay quite a few times, but my light is just running out. So we're going to use the dark one and hope it's not going to come out too dark. No, I think it's going to be fine. So again, just colouring it in. I always do the dark part first. This is going to come up around the top like this. And as I say, spend a little bit more time. I always say that I try and, you know, do this a little bit, maybe, oops, now not to make sure that I don't smudge this. I'm turning it this way round because, as I said to you earlier, my memento is, I've just re-inked it recently, and it does mean that when it's quite juicy, you do find that it will smudge if you stick your hands in it. So we don't want to do that. So I'm just taking that in on here, colouring this one in. I know you've seen me do this sort of colouring before, which is a very simple way of just colouring it in. Again, if you haven't got alcohol markers or blends, you can use pencils, you can use inks, you can use whatever way you want. You can just leave it as it is. You don't need to colour it in at all. It's entirely down to you. There's a coordinating punch with this one, which again is great, but if you're just starting out and your budget doesn't stretch to punches and things, it's a really easy way of just doing it. Now I'm taking the light and literally just doing right the way through and blending that over the top, so don't have to. Again, I've always said very, very light touches. I hardly touch the paper at all. If you're heavy-handed, you know, do practice not being quite so heavy-handed, because you will find A, your blends last longer, and B, you don't massacre your tips, because the tips of these are very fine to get into these little tiny corners, which is beautiful. But if you are heavy-handed, you find that you'll fray the tips a bit and it tends to bleed outside, particularly when they're new, whereas that just gives you that really pretty piece on there. Okay, and then all we need to do is to put it onto a base, and I've chosen a blue that will contrast nicely, and put that on like that. And you then have, as I say, a very simple card, but it's a great way of doing your own mask without having to use dies or anything like that. So I hope that was useful for you. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, please stay safe and well and be kind, and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.